Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Blog. James, it is a goodly morning to you, but it's also a bit of a sadly morning for me.
It is, man.
Yeah.
It is. I'm so sorry about Archer.
That's okay.
I'm sure everyone listening is as well and sends you all their best wishes. But what a life he led.
What a life, absolutely. That's the thing with dogs, you know when you get a puppy that one day you're going to be faced with this situation and it's horrible and it's painful, but everything that comes up to that point is brilliant and worth it. All of that is worth it, all the love you get. And if people don't know, we had a situation Friday afternoon, Archer. He's been not that well of late because he's quite old. He was quite old, 12 and a half, which is quite old for a dog and very old for a German Shepherd. He had a bit of a turn on Friday and we had to have that conversation. The vet came on Saturday and I was supposed to be going over for the game, actually, on Saturday. I had my flights and hotel and tickets and the whole lot. But obviously, given the circumstances, I couldn't travel. And so we had to say goodbye to Archer on Saturday afternoon, which was difficult and painful. And I think every pet owner, whether it's a dog or cat or anything else, understands what it's like when you let go of and lose a family member. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's left a comment or sent an email. I'll do my best to reply to all the emails. I can't reply to all the comments on Instagram and other social media things, but I really do appreciate the kind words. And he was sort of a background character in the podcast, James. Every so often there'd be some barking and there he was.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was there.
He was there.
And I think, how's Lana? That would be my first question.
She's fine. I think she's a little bewildered because she never knew life without him, whereas he knew life without her, but she never knew life without him. From the moment she arrived in the house, he was like big brother, I guess. Everything he did, she copied everything he did, all the mannerisms and stuff like that. So she's a little bewildered and a little finds it a little bit strange without him, I think, but she'll be okay. We'll make sure she's got all the love she needs, to help her get through this. So
yeah, and it is. I do think whenever animals, particularly dogs, pass away, it is a shorter life, but it's such an instructive one in terms of how intensely they live it and how much joy they not only bring but sort of experience themselves through play and connection. And I think we can take a lot from them. I think
it's unconditional, the love that they give you and you give them, and the mad stuff that they do, the things that happen during their life. Every dog has their own personality, their own little quirks and foibles and, things that they really enjoy doing. Lots of dogs, for example, like chasing a ball or chasing a frisbee or a stick. Archer's thing was rocks. You could throw a ball and he'd go, oh yeah, okay.
Not bothered.
Nah, yeah, I'll do it for, once or twice. But if you got a good-sized rock and went to a field and just flung that rock all the way down the field, he'd run down, or you could hide it. He'd like to, do seeks and finds and stuff with rocks. Don't ask me. And of course, Lana being the copycat that she is, she's equally obsessed with rocks. So it's just those weird things that they do, and they become normal to you. But when you say it to somebody else, they're like, "Your dog doesn't like balls. Your dog doesn't like frisbees or whatever." He loved rocks. Rocks were his thing.
Well, I saw a video on Threads that you uploaded. In which you had taught Archer to whisper.
Yeah.
You were the dog whisperer in that training exercise, and he is a dog whispering. It's incredible.
That's it. Yeah, he whispers. So if you could get him to bark. We taught him how to do a little bark. If you did the kind of yap yap motion with your hand, he would bark. But if through a bit of training, if I went to Archer, whisper, he'd go. And it was always so entertaining. So if you're giving him a snack, sometimes just for your own amusement, you go, Archer, whisper. You go, whoa. Lana could never get it, though. She just doesn't get it. But,
there you go. Special dog.
Everything. Yeah, special dog and special memories. So
special memories indeed. Well, yeah, like I say, all the listeners join in sending you their very best and condolences, and hope you're able to reflect on the good times soon.
Sure. In the short term, it's always a bit difficult, and you might have to metaphorically hold my hand going through this one because, I did the live blog yesterday. The vet left the house yesterday at about 1:30, and I thought work might be a good distraction, which I think it was. In many ways, it was just sort of good to focus on something else for 90 minutes or 97 minutes or 100 minutes or whatever it turned out to be. But I will admit I sort of live blogged through a little bit of a haze. I was sort of live blogging, tapping away, watching the match, doing what I do while sort of randomly crying. The keeper made another save. Woo-hoo. And I wasn't crying at the save,
No. Some of us were.
I understand that completely.
Others of us had a bit bigger fish to fry in your case. But I think, Well, I'll try. I mean, It was an eventful game, if nothing else, Andrew.
It certainly was. I mean,
a lot happened.
I mean, it was all set up for the most sort of routine win you could ask for. 3:00 on a Saturday, we're 2-0 up at halftime against a newly promoted side, playing well, maybe not maximizing our chances, but still fairly dominant in the game, and you're 2-0 up. And that, I think that second goal just before halftime gave me like, okay, everything will be fine now, because they were saying on TV, the 1-goal lead, despite all the dominance, will Arsenal pay the price for that? And then we got that second goal, and I was like, okay, second half, going to be a nice, easy ride.
I thought so too. I had my eyes on, I think it was a 4-goal victory that would take us above Man City.
Right.
And I was already looking at that at half-time thinking, here we go, halfway there. Wondering which school children we might bring on in the second half. And we did basically bring on one, and he was very good. But other than that, I really thought we were home and clear. It wasn't to be. Football's a mad old game sometimes. I mean, I'm sure everyone's seen some of the numbers doing the rounds this morning in terms of expected goals and how many chances, or the value of the chances Leicester actually created and what they got from them. But it just completely turned on a sixpence, and then suddenly we were left needing a late winner.
Yeah, I didn't see the bit about Leicester's chances and the value of those. I presume their XG was about 0.1 or something for both chances like combined.
I think it was something like 0.2, 0.26, 0.27.
Right.
I think, according to Opta. Right. Arsenal's was over 4. The stats from this game are quite extraordinary. Arsenal had 36 shots, which is their joint most that Opta have on record since the Invincibles season. They had 16 shots on target, again, their joint highest since records in 2003-04. Hermansen made 13 saves, the most in a Premier League game since David De Gea, also at Emirates Stadium in 2017.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, 75% possession, 17 corners. It's kind of the most amazing thing about the game is that Arsenal needed a late winner.
Yeah.
And I had, when you're watching a game, sometimes you're sort of, if you're going to be writing about it or talking about it, as it goes on, you're kind of thinking, how am I going to frame this? What's my take, Andrew? And
your hot take.
My hot, spicy take. And had Arsenal failed to win this game, it would have been, I'm sure, framed by some as a bit of a disaster and 2 drop points. What a nightmare, are they the same old flaky Arsenal? But my take was going to be that I don't think Arsenal can do much more to win a Premier League game than what they did in the first 90 minutes of that match. They obviously went on and won it. Fantastic. Yeah. But even if they hadn't, I would have been saying that this was a completely dominant performance, and that the difference between the two teams was, a deflection off Havertz that went past Raya and an absolute wonder goal from James Justin,
Yeah.
and an extraordinary goalkeeping performance.
I mean, he was ridiculous. We'll come back to him. I mean, I think I would agree with that. The only thing I would say is that I think for both goals, there are things that when Mikel Arteta looks at them again and analyses them, there are things that Arsenal could have done better. So that might be the difference between what more could we have done to win the game. But certainly from an attacking perspective, it was relentless. So let's go back to the first half. There was quite an early chance, I think, for Gabriel Martinelli, who put it over with his left foot, and I thought to myself, oh, no, come on. You've got to score at some point. You've got to get this monkey off your back. You've got to, break this drought, this duck that you've been carrying around. A lot of animal metaphors in there, I'm sorry. But he did get a goal. Not the most powerful strike he will ever have, but I think when you've been going through a fallow period like he has been going through, it was March since he last scored or made an assist, I think. So it was great to see him score the first goal. Obviously great to score the first goal. Jurriën Timber, I think, with the ball across. I don't know if this was like a perfectly guided using the pace of the ball to put it beyond the goalkeeper, or if it was just a little bit of a scuffy one. But either way, it was great to see Martinelli get the goal. Yeah,
and isn't that the old cliche? Sometimes you need one to come off your arse or whatever it is. Just get that little bit of luck. It wasn't a brilliant connection with Martinelli from the ball, but it was an important moment for him because it was only about 4 minutes after he'd put that chance over when played in by Saka. And I wonder if the game had gone on and if he'd missed this chance, for example, would crowd frustration begin to emerge? Would there have been a little bit of atmosphere? I don't know. But the fact that with his very next opportunity, he found the bottom corner was a big moment. And, again, the cross from Timber, I don't know if that was a pick out necessarily, but he made the overlapping run. He pulled it back into a dangerous area. And there was Martinelli to tuck it away. So, interesting as well that this goal came from Arsenal winning the ball, I mean, according to Match of the Day, in quite controversial circumstances, on the halfway line with Saliba and Calafiori kind of robbing Jamie Vardy of it. And we actually scored, I think, within about 12, 13 seconds of regaining possession. And that was a big theme in the first half. We knew we were going to be facing a low block, so we tried to win it high. And wherever we won it on the pitch, we were very kind of vertical in how we attacked the goal. We tried to transition quickly and create opportunities that way. It's interesting. Leicester were very, very unhappy with what they saw as a Saliba foul on Jamie Vardy.
I mean, it's sort of six of one, half a dozen of the other, really. I think it's one of those that if it's given, you don't really complain about it. If play goes on, it's not the worst thing in the world, I always think, and I genuinely would say this if it was the other way around, if you've conceded a goal but you're complaining about something that's happened on the halfway line, something has obviously gone very wrong. It could have been given, but I don't think it's the sort of one that we should be going back and re-refereeing and reviewing. And actually, I thought in the first half, Saliba's mastery of Vardy was really something to behold. I mean, I know he's 37 now, but he's a handful. And in the second half, I think he did much better and Saliba ended up getting booked. But honestly, in the first half, it was like watching a young guy against an old guy.
Yeah, a terrier chasing a Ferrari was what I was going to say. But it was kind of extraordinary. Like Saliba was just, bouncing off him. And
I wonder why he chose Saliba as the guy to latch onto, right? Because he was on his own up front and obviously had a difficult job. He is 37. I just wondered why there wasn't a bit more variety to his play up front. But not that I care, but I just think if I'm Jamie Vardy, I'm looking at Saliba and Gabriel. I'm not fancying my chances against either of them, but I think I would try and mix it up a bit rather than just stick to the guy who's bodying me all over the pitch.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as I say, in the second half, I don't know if it was the benefit of his experience, but he started to have a bit more success in terms of holding the ball up or winning a free kick here and there. Maybe that was just a bit of know-how and canniness coming in as he kind of got the measure of Saliba. But in the first 45 minutes, he couldn't get near him.
No.
And it was actually a very entertaining duel to watch.
Yeah. Who doesn't enjoy Jamie Vardy not getting anything on the pitch?
Ending up on his arse, basically.
Well, yeah, and after all the difficulties that he has caused us down the years, and there have been many, most of which involve him diving for penalties, it was good to see. So that was 20 minutes in, more or less, when we got the goal. I think Arsenal were absolutely dominant in that first half. You are looking for a bit more, though, aren't you? When you are that dominant, and you're thinking. Like, I was already thinking about goal difference going into this game, and that might sound presumptuous in some ways, but I think we saw last season how important that can be to a title race. And it wasn't taking anything for granted whatsoever, because, I don't do that, and, the Premier League will show you up if you think you can just turn up and stick 4, 5, 6 beyond any opposition, regardless of whether they're newly promoted or not. But I did look at this game and think, it is potentially one of those where we could, add to our goal difference or benefit our goal difference in a big way. And when you're that dominant, and you have, I think we had 13, 14 shots in the first half, 75% possession as well, I think it would have been disappointing to go in 1-0 up, just 1-0 up.
Yeah, we had a couple of chances. The one that sticks in my mind is Havertz heading down from a Trossard cross, and it just past
wide.
The far post.
Yeah. Keeper wasn't anywhere near that one.
No, I mean, he kind of did everything right, really. The keeper hadn't yet activated his superpowers.
No, they came at half-time. Whatever magic potion they gave him at half-time, it fucking worked.
Whatever, radioactive creature bit him in the dressing room at half-time, he came out a very different man. But yeah, you did sort of think, are we going to get the just reward here? I thought we might have had a penalty. I've not actually seen it again, but just in the build-up to the second goal, Calafiori went down, didn't he, in the box? But
they didn't show
Rice,
a replay, Yeah,
they didn't really see a replay of it. I guess ultimately it didn't matter. But Declan Rice, I think, sensed, let's not just wait for this VAR thing to play out. There's something still on here. And gives it to Martinelli, who squares it. And I think it's a really nice finish from Leo Trossard.
Agree. It's the sort of finish I think you associate with him now. That
True.
Precision and quality inside the box. Do you remember the goal he scored against Everton a couple of years ago? Or I presume it was last season, maybe, or the end of the season before. I can't remember. But it was a sort of, the ball just broke to him in the box, and he just took a shot so quickly that he was to the right of the goal, and he sort of clipped it, and it went right in the other far side. An old T-Rex hands couldn't get anywhere near it. But it was just the speed with which he took the shot and the precision with which he took the shot that I think is almost his trademark now. And when that ball came across, the way he opened up his foot to put it into the far corner of the net, just clinical, absolutely perfect finish. There's no way the goalkeeper's getting anywhere near it.
You're absolutely right. I'm just watching that Everton goal again. And the amazing thing about it is that one's with his left foot, right? And this one is with his right. Great finish. He very nearly did it exactly that again in the second half, hit the post, the outside of the post this time.
Yeah.
It was inches away. I think that might have been off his left foot. He's just very, very good at kind of getting those shots off, no backlift, finding the corners. And it was just rewards, really, for what Arsenal had produced in the first half. And, you mentioned, kind of having one eye on the end of the game and goal difference and how comfortable it might be. It was the same speaking to the Leicester journalists, in the press room and watching what Leicester fans were saying online. They had been pretty despondent coming into the game. They're not in good form. Steve Cooper, they're not entirely convinced by, I think, at this point in time. It's a big departure from what they had last season in terms of tactics and the way they approach the games. So, I think there was a sort of collective feeling of like, well, this game is done. And how wrong we all were.
How wrong we were. The very early part of the second half, you talked about Vardy maybe having more of an impact. I think this is where we saw all 37 years of Jamie Vardy, where he ran in front of Saliba. I don't think it's really a foul. I think Vardy manufactures a foul there for himself using his experience. And I think the referee, the yellow card rather, is a little bit harsh for William Saliba there as well.
Well, he's done a fair bit of manufacturing down the years, Jamie Vardy. He's manufactured a few penalties. So, yeah, I think he knows what he's up to there. I wasn't that surprised to see the other card given, but I as I said earlier, I think Vardy, he pulled out every trick in the book in the second half, and one of them won him this free kick. But I'm with you that in terms of the defending of the free kick, I think Arsenal could have done much better.
So the delivery came in. Kai Havertz, who I think is actually exceptional defensively in our area for a midfielder / forward, whatever he is. Let's not have that debate. It doesn't matter. But I think he is really, really good. Like the amount, if you go back and watch games when the opposition have set pieces and they sling them in, whether it's a free kick or whether it's a corner, I would posit that Kai Havertz is right up there, if not ahead of Saliba and Gabriel at times in terms of how many clearances he makes. Yeah. Because A, he's good in the air, and B, his defensive positioning is extremely good. I assume it's, the way he's coached or, his particular role, depending on where the set piece is coming from, but he understands where he needs to be from a defensive point of view, which is why I found it quite strange to see him where he was as that free kick came in. He dropped off a little bit too much, and when the header went in, I was like, oh my God, what has David Raya done here? Because it looked like a big mistake from David Raya, but as we saw from the replay, the fact that Havertz dropped off, the header hit him on the shoulder, Raya was just about to go one way, and despite the fact he has the reflexes of not just one, I would say about 4 cats combined into one, he couldn't readjust this time, and the ball went in the back of the net. So, a fairly, I'm not going to say completely avoidable, but I do think if Havertz had been better positioned or closer to James Justin, that goal does not go in.
Yeah, I agree. And not even being bitten by a radioactive cat could enable David Raya to make this save. I think Havertz takes up a slightly odd position. It must be a miscommunication or a misinterpretation of what Leicester's intentions are. That said, it's still a slice of pretty bad luck for it to hit him the way it does and loop over the goalkeeper. Things we could have done better. But Leicester suddenly back in the game, having offered next to nothing really in the first half. And perhaps unsurprisingly, I think they were a bit buoyed by that goal and probably enjoyed their best spell over the next 10 minutes or so and got their reward.
Yeah, but I think, when you look at the stats and when you look at what the response was between their goal and then their second goal, I still think Arsenal were dominant. I know what you mean. It gave Leicester a bit of energy and a bit of a lifeline, but between then, Arsenal had 8 shots.
The post with Trossard in that gap.
There was one when Saka, a low cross shot with his right foot, keeper saved with his feet. There was a Gabriel header saved, if you remember. Calafiori
on the follow-up.
And Timber, I think, had a chance where it came to him and he swiveled on his left foot and put it over, and his reaction to that shot going over the bar tells you what he thought of that opportunity to get a shot on target as well. So despite the fact Leicester did have a bit of energy, I think Arsenal's response was pretty good. But then, of course, they got their second goal, and I think you have to sometimes just say, hats off, what a strike. I mean, it's an unbelievable hit. It really is a brilliant, brilliant finish from Justin. However, I would say again that we didn't do enough to prevent the cross coming in from the other side of the pitch, that defensively there was an issue there for us where the effort wasn't quite what you would expect it to be, and certainly not what Mikel Arteta would want, because I think his first thought when it comes to defending is stop the danger or stop the ball getting into those dangerous areas. You can't legislate for a guy smashing the ball with the kind of precision that Justin did for the finish, but I think you can control whether the ball comes in or indeed the quality of the ball that comes in by just maybe closing down a little bit faster.
I think we were sort of outplayed a little bit easily on that left-hand side. It's quite sort of straightforward little overlap, really, and then they're in. Luke crossed the back post. I mean, could Calafiori get himself under it and get head on it? Perhaps. But then it's just a sensational volley. I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan through and through, as you know, but there were a couple of moments from Leicester players in this game that did have me off my seat. One or two of the saves from Hermansen definitely did, and this strike from Justin, I almost couldn't help but react to it, because anyone who's ever played or watched football knows, you could hit that ball 100 times and you might not get as good a contact as that.
No, it's aesthetically a very pleasing goal, isn't it? Just to watch, even if it did go in against us. I probably wouldn't find it as pleasing, had we not managed to pull the game.
That's true, yeah. My admiration would be.
Yeah, exactly. It's all linked to, how you can be very magnanimous when you've scored 2 late goals to win 4-2. You can go, yeah, well done the keeper, well done for that finish. Yeah. There you go. Now toddle off home with your no points.
Pat on the head for James Justin. What a goal.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. That then sparked Arsenal into a kind of relentless period of attack between their second goal and the final whistle. I think we had 15 attempts on goal. The game was being played in their half, pretty much all of it. Before we get to the goals, is there anything? Oh, I suppose there is the small matter of the Calafiori incident, whether or not he should have had a second yellow card.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously seen the Leicester complaints about that. Maybe. But what I would say is I don't know how Oliver Skipp was still on the pitch.
Oh, yeah, actually, that was very close to being a red card challenge in the first half, early on.
Yeah, the one on Martinelli,
yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
And
he got nothing for it.
He got nothing, not a booking. That's where I was going to go with this, where I think Calafiori's first yellow is ridiculous. I don't think that's a yellow card. The second one, you've seen them given, I have to say. I think maybe we got a little bit lucky there, but also, as you say, Skipp didn't get a yellow for that challenge on Martinelli, which I think is borderline red because of, he studs on the ankle. He doesn't get anywhere near the ball and he's off the ground. He goes in. I think it's a really dangerous tackle. Yeah. He's also booked and he also committed a bad foul on the edge of our box. Do you remember the one when Saka ran across the box and got absolutely cleaned out by Skipp? And the referee, rather than give us a free kick in a really dangerous position, said play on, and there was no advantage really to playing on. We should have had a free kick on the edge of the box, and Skipp should have had a second yellow card there. So I think we deserve a little bit of luck after what's happened in the opening 5 games of the season. So I can't get really too bent out of shape over this thing. And if Leicester have some complaints about it, I understand it, but I don't care.
Yeah, listen. In the press box, we have the benefit of replays of fouls and stuff. And when they showed that Skipp challenge on Martinelli in the first half, there was a kind of collective intake of breath. Everyone knew that was a bad challenge and he should have been booked for it. That would have meant he was off after 49 minutes, which, would have prevented probably Leicester's comeback. I agree as well. He should have gone maybe when the play-on decision happened as well, which was one of the worst play-on decisions I've ever seen.
Yes.
Because the ball just the move completely petered out and it was like, well, you had your chance. So I've got no sympathy really. That's football. Sometimes those go in your favour, sometimes they don't. I don't think on the day Leicester have a case that they were sort of unfairly treated or anything like it. None of these calls were sort of big enough calls to impact the outcome, and I think if we did get a break, we're absolutely due one.
Yeah. So the goalkeeper's superpowers really kicked in after 2-2.
Yes, I mean it got crazy, Andrew. It was at the point where I was sort of close to laughing in disbelief at what I was seeing. He denied Havertz on the spin on the volley. Made a save from Trossard when we'd won the ball high up the pitch.
He gave it away actually, and then made the save. Yeah.
He had he'd transcended to a higher plane, that goalkeeper, at that point in time.
Yeah, I think I texted you at one point towards the end of the game, going, "This is mad. This is actually mad. What he's doing is ridiculous." It reminded me of, you mentioned the David De Gea game, but it reminded me of Edwin van der Sar playing for Fulham against Arsenal at Highbury, and it was Arsenal with Bergkamp and Henry and Pires and Ljungberg and Edu, and this was 2003, I think. So a pretty decent Arsenal team, you would say, but Van der Sar that day just single-handedly kept Fulham in the game and kept Arsenal at bay. It was ridiculous what he did that day, and I had shades of that going on with Hermansen in this one. The opportunities that we had. I think the save from Calafiori's header was incredible. Really, really brilliant save. Like the one from Havertz where he's on the turn, and I don't know that Havertz can really... That one is where I think if Havertz miskicks it, he has a better chance of scoring.
Of course.
You know what I mean? But he, swivel on the volley, point blank range with his right foot. But it's one of those where it's kind of straight at the keeper, and he probably needed it to come off his toe a little bit for it to go in. It's a spectacular looking save because of how close Havertz is to goal. But when you look at that header, the header from Calafiori is brilliant. It's not just sort of like, I'll use the pace of the ball. It's, I will put more pace on the ball with a thumping header. If that goes in, that is
from set pieces.
Yeah, I want to talk about the fullbacks actually in a minute, if that's okay. It really is a thumping header, and it's just the reaction time from the goalkeeper is ridiculous. It's a brilliant save. And again, I'm being magnanimous because we've won, but that one in particular was outstanding.
Yeah, Ethan Ranieri came off the bench and immediately tested him from range as well.
Could Ethan Ranieri have come off the bench 15 minutes earlier?
Maybe. I mean, he made a tremendous impact, didn't he, when he arrived in the game? It was so. He came on. The first thing he did was kind of duck inside, beat a couple of men, and smash that shot from range that was palmed away. And the Arsenal bench, particularly Carlos Cuesta, sort of leapt to their feet immediately in applause. They loved that, and Arteta referenced it in his post-match press conference. They loved that he came off the bench, 17 years of age, and immediately took responsibility and tried to win the game.
Yeah, I think it's one of those cameos that was so impressive. It was a very short period of time that he was on the pitch. I think it's one of those where if we're in a similar scenario again, Mikel Arteta would have no compunction in bringing him on a bit earlier, because he just had such an impact and such a positive impact on the way that we played. I think we're learning about him and learning about what he's capable of. And we saw in the midweek game against Bolton, we've got a real talent on our hands. But the two goals, were a step forward for him. And I think even though he was only on the pitch for 10 minutes, 15 minutes in total with this game, I think it was the 84th minute he came on, or 85th minute. Let me have a look.
84, I think.
84th minute. I think it's the kind of cameo that would make Arteta say, okay, yeah, we can trust this guy when it's 2-2 against another team like this, or indeed any other team. And we can bring him on earlier. We can sacrifice a little bit of the defensive side of the game because we're pushing for a winner, and we can bring somebody on who we know will make an impact.
Yeah, and I think, I can't remember if it's quite how it worked, but I think Thomas Partey coming off and Declan Rice going in his holding midfield when you're chasing a game is something that makes a ton of sense. And I don't think you're that much worse off, really. I think, Ranieri, not only did he have that shot as soon as he came on, I think the next thing he did was there was like a looping ball in the penalty area, and he just killed it, immediately brought it under his control. And you were like, oh, wow, okay, he's really on one today. And very, very exciting, a little cameo from him. And
he made a great tackle, didn't he, on halfway after we'd scored? Yeah. Made a great tackle, just slid in and win the ball. And I think those small moments are really key to how a player is viewed by the fans, but also how they're viewed by the manager. Because he was brought on to make an attacking impact, but once we had the lead, he was switched on and did his defensive job.
Absolutely, yeah, he was brilliant. And despite that, I mean, I have to say, I did begin to wonder if this was going to happen. There was, I think, in the 89th minute, Havertz had a header but couldn't get good contact on
What a ball that is from Saka.
Yeah. Countless corners, obviously. But eventually one told.
So we got that corner. It's the 94th minute, 93rd minute, right? I'm sitting there at home doing the live blog. And Saka's about to take the corner. So I say out loud, come on, Archer. The corner comes across, falls to Trossard, puts it back in the mixer, hits off Wilfred and Ndidi into the back of the net, 3-2 to Arsenal. Now, was it the quality of Saka's delivery? Or was it me invoking magical powers into the spirit of a recently departed pet that brought that goal about? That's the beauty of football, James.
I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know.
Yeah.
But I know. Thanks, Archer.
Maybe a little from column A.
A little from column B. Good boy, Archer.
Good boy. What a good boy. A good boy bringing a goodly morning to everyone. I mean, listen, we all thank Archer for that. We did get a bit of a break there. But I liked, you know what, Trossard, he picked up that position and it was a bit like the Declan Rice position against Manchester United almost exactly a year ago. That was September last year. And what I liked about Trossard there is I think a lot of players would have thought, I'm just going to put my foot through this. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to smash this, or I'm going to, go in for the header, try and knock it towards goal. He was quite composed, quite calm, controlled, just sort of gently prodded the ball back into a dangerous area. And that was enough. That was enough.
It goes down as an Ndidi own goal, but I think morally it's a Trossard goal.
Yeah, Trossard got all the acclaim in the stadium. I think Saka will be disappointed it's gone down as an own goal, because had he got an assist, I think he would have become the first player to get 6 assists across the first 6 Premier League games. But there you go.
There you go. Bit of a shame.
He won't be too sad this morning. No. I think the important thing was the 3 points.
The 3 points, 3-2. And of course, it was 4-2. Gabriel Jesus came on as a sub, and he did his best to make a bollocks of that situation, didn't he?
Yeah, because we had 2 men to his left, didn't we? It was Havertz and Sterling.
Yeah.
And he went for the shot, which was a foolish thing to do against a goalkeeper with superpowers.
Exactly. Was he not watching? Remember Trossard when he came on? What game was it? Aston Villa, maybe? When Trossard came on, he said, I was watching the game from the bench and I could see that there were spaces that I could get in behind, the left back, and he made an impact from there. Gabriel Jesus was sitting on the bench with an eye mask on, listening to a podcast, probably.
Exactly. He had no idea what he was getting into.
Who's this guy?
I know, right? This sort of Schmeichel reincarnated.
Yeah.
But yes, the ball breaks. James Justin, who had a very eventful afternoon all round, slides in, knocks it against Kai Havertz, and after a very lengthy offside check, the goal is given.
But he couldn't be offside because it was James Justin. That's what Havertz said.
Ludicrous. I think they did an offside check on maybe the Trossard goal as well. And I was like, what are you checking here?
I didn't know that. I didn't notice
It was one of the first 2 goals. There was kind of a VAR check that I remember thinking and being like, I've got no idea what you're looking at here. Potential offside. It came up on the big screen. I was like, what? But anyway, this one we did wait for, and it was actually quite a nice moment when they announced the goal, and we knew we were home and dry.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Trossard afterwards, he spoke about being a bit lucky. He was like, we had the luck today. And when you look at our last 2 goals, you might say there's some luck involved. It comes off Ndidi's calf or whatever and goes in the net, or Justin whacks it against Havertz, flies in the net. Maybe some luck there. But what you'd have to say as well is a bit of luck in how Leicester got their goals, I think. And ultimately, you get the reward of luck for the sheer weight and volume of opportunities and pressure that Arsenal created and exerted in this game.
100%. It's like Gary Player, the golfer. There's a famous quote attributed to him. He said, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And I think there's an element of that where, like, the sheer weight of relentless attacking phases of play from Arsenal, regardless of how many superpowers the goalkeeper has, eventually will come to pass. It doesn't always, but this is not our first injury time rodeo, is it? It's
no.
It's something that I think this team has developed over the years. And look, I would rather we win that game 4-0, everyone goes home, has a nice quiet day. But I think what is interesting about this Arsenal team is that we're still, despite all the organisation and discipline and tactics and game planning and game strategies and game management, all of those things, sort of hardwired into our DNA is this sort of strand of chaos, which manifests itself, a couple of times a season. That is just part of who we are as a football club. What I think is so interesting now is that I think we're so much better able to cope with it. We can deal with it when it happens. We have the quality, we have the ability, but we also have the belief because we've done it more than once. Late goals and just keeping going and keeping plugging away, it seems obvious, but I think when you're the opposition and you're up against a team who score late goals, time and time and time again, it must be in the back of your mind somewhere. It must create just some measure of uncertainty when you're facing another corner, another set piece, another, phase of attacking play coming right at you. Leicester did, for example, what we did last week. There was a bit of time wasting, a bit of cramping, a bit of goalkeeper needing treatment. And I'm looking forward to all the pundits talking about Leicester's use of the dark arts. It'll be very,
all
very...
the yellow cards as well.
Yeah. But and look, I looked at it yesterday and I was like, well, fair enough. Who are we to argue? But ultimately, that was the reason for 7 minutes of added time. I saw Steve Cooper on the sideline going, where did that come from? It's like, dude, come on. You know where that came from. And fair play, you tried, as we tried last week, but ultimately fell victim to a late goal as we did last week. That's what happens. But I think there's a lot to credit this team for when it comes to their perseverance, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I guess the shoe was on the other foot, really, wasn't it? And I think actually that this game, this is kind of what we were talking about last week, but we'll probably see more games like this game than we will like the City one over the course of the season, in terms of Arsenal being the aggressor and the dominant side and the opposition trying to slow things down and buy time. And I thought it was really encouraging the way Arsenal managed to win this one. And I think the sheer number of chances they created without Martin Odegaard was really promising. Although Leicester are not a great team, and I think they are going to struggle this season, they're defending in a deep block. And as we've seen over the past couple of years, that's very difficult to break down. Yeah. But Arsenal have other tools available to them now, set pieces, high press, that help them create turnovers and chances, which I think is really promising. Because obviously the next league game is Southampton. I think, is that right?
Yes.
Next weekend. Could be a similar day in some respects.
Could be.
And we seem well positioned for that challenge.
Sure. I think the other thing that we should point out, or it just sort of occurred to me, is that the two late goals saved us from a big why didn't we buy a striker discussion.
Oh man, big time.
Yeah.
I'm sure there'll be people still asking that question. That
I get it.
One thing you could say, given the wealth of chances that Arsenal had in this game, is it a failure of finishing in some way? I think on this day, it is more about the goalkeeper. I do think he was just, on another level in that second half.
So I just wanted, we probably have some individual questions about these two, but I did think that both of our fullbacks in this game were so interesting. And so they made such a big contribution. Timber had 7 key passes in this game, which is kind of ridiculous for a fullback. I thought he was very good defensively. I think he made more tackles than anybody else. Maybe himself and Thomas Partey had the same number of tackles. But going forward, his overlapping, there was one incredible piece of skill on the sideline, on the touchline, if you remember. Maybe that took place right in front of you, or I can't remember if it was over the far side of the ground.
Oh, yeah, I think it was just in front of
you. It was brilliant. I mean, 7 key passes for Jurriën Timber. Bukayo Saka had 8, and 8 dribbles and 7 shots. Maybe we'll come back to Saka, but I thought Calafiori as well was really good offensively. He had 3 shots on target in this game, a couple of key passes himself, a couple of dribbles. And I think the change in dynamic, when you talk about missing players, so we missed Ben White, we missed Martin Odegaard, obviously. And that they're two of a very important piece of that right-sided triangle, right, with Bukayo Saka, and have been for years. But what Timber does is slightly different to what Ben White does. What Calafiori does is certainly different to what, let's say, Kivior or Tomiyasu, and to a lesser extent, Zinchenko does, because I think Zinchenko is more of a passer than a ball carrier, whereas Calafiori is willing to carry the ball and make some dribbles. He was everywhere yesterday, and we're talking about two guys who are new to the team, even if Timber is not necessarily new to the club, but he missed all of last season. I think this was a really interesting aspect of our performance yesterday. What we got from our fullbacks in terms of output was, by any measure, I think, extraordinary.
Yeah, and I was just reading over my notes, and at some point in the first half, I just wrote down Calafiori as a massive upgrade. Now, I don't think he's been perfect, and I think defensively he had moments in this game you could look at. Certainly at the Etihad, maybe you consider he was beaten too easily on the first goal. But he still looks like, to me, a really fantastic player, and someone who provides something totally different at left back. I know that there are elements of his game you can compare to Zinchenko, but Zinchenko does not have his physicality or his dynamism. We spoke about set pieces. He offers a threat there as well, which, none of our, well, maybe Kivior, but certainly not Zinchenko offers. I just think there's something very adventurous about the way he plays the game. I think it unlocks certain things for us. It was interesting. The day before, actually, I'd asked Arteta about him and how he's settling in, and the fact that he gave him his debut at the Etihad, and he said, with another player, I probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I saw that in the press conference. By the way, your acting training is noticeable in the press conference. When everyone asks questions, your voice comes across the clearest, as if you are on the stage in the theatre.
Sure.
Projecting. Sure. But yeah, that was a really interesting answer to that question, wasn't it? Like, with another player, maybe not. But there's obviously something that Arteta really likes about what Calafiori can bring to this team. And, I understand it. I think we can see it.
His personality, he really relishes the challenge of playing for Arsenal. And I kept quite a close eye on our shape in this game, because something that's been going on over the past few weeks, I've talked about our system in terms of, I've sort of seen it as Trossard leading the line and Havertz kind of playing in that Odegaard role where he joins in with the front two occasionally, but ostensibly is filling in midfield. But I've had a bit of pushback from some people saying to me, why do you keep saying that? Clearly Havertz is playing up front and Trossard isn't. And I was like, that's really interesting that I'm seeing that so differently to some other people. So I watched it quite closely in this match, and it's basically just a box. It's a box with two up top. Havertz and Trossard form the kind of upper corners of that box. And then at the bottom, it's Partey, and then the other position in the box rotates. So sometimes it's Declan Rice, sometimes it's Calafiori, and sometimes it's Jurrien Timber. And what's fascinating about that is just the sheer fluidity of it. All of those guys are taking turns playing next to Thomas Partey at the base of this box. And I just wonder if that is lending us kind of an air of unpredictability that's maybe slightly varying our build-up and how we attack. It's a really interesting development, because they can all do that job. And Calafiori can look so comfortable there, and Timber can look so comfortable there. And I know we've done versions of it in the past, but it just seems that in the absence of Odegaard, I think they're really emphasising those rotations and that fluidity a bit more. Yeah,
that is fascinating. I saw Calafiori pop up on the right side of that box a few times as well, which, we've seen Zinchenko over there, but again, with Calafiori, it's more like he's sort of a hunter-gatherer kind of player. I don't quite know how to express it.
Oh, that sounds like a smoke alarm. Oh, I better go.
Better check that. We need smoke alarm music.
Sorry, it was just a fire. Terrible fire.
Oh, that's okay. Once everything's burned down, that's fine.
No, all good. All good.
He looks, by the way, before we go into part two, he does look to have settled in really quickly and really well, doesn't he, Calafiori?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can take a player a while to come to terms with a new club, with a new league, a new country. I have been taken with just how quickly he looks settled and a really integral part of the team. You sometimes you watch a new player and you look at their interactions with their teammates, and you can see them sometimes feeling their way into the group, if you like. But he looks straight in there, one of the boys.
Definitely. I was going to say you can see it in the kind of personal connections he has with players and staff. And he's probably been helped in that by how good his English is.
Yes.
It's such a basic thing in some respects, but it makes a world of difference, doesn't it, when you're trying to settle into a new country? And I was really struck by that, as an Italian coming here, never played in this country, his first interview, immaculate English. And I know people in Europe, I should never underestimate how good their English can be. It's deeply embarrassing for us as a nation. Look at how we fare with languages as a comparison. But I'm sure that's really helped him settle in quickly.
All right. Well, look, that seems like a reasonable place to leave the first part of this show. So what we'll do is take a little break. We'll come back with your questions and more in part two right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part two of the show where we answer questions that you sent to us on Threads. If I remember to post the thing on Threads, which I didn't today, so apologies. I was a bit distracted and forgot to actually just hit the button that says post. I had it typed out and stuff, but hey, what are you going to do? So our questions this week are exclusively from our Discord, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. I'm going to go first because I think this just sort of carries on a little bit from what we were talking about towards the end of part one. But we had a couple of questions. Backsack and Crack says, goodly morning, early days, but has Calafiori helped unlock our left side again? And SF Petrassi on Discord as well says, has the left-hand side finally been fixed?
I think it's probably too early to say that, with any kind of definitive way. But I do think it's promising. I think he theoretically, you can see immediately why he's been signed. That he provides a balance between quite an adventurous attacking spirit and, the defensive solidity of someone who's played a lot of his career at centre half. He ticks kind of every box that Mikel Arteta would want in a fullback, I think, including being exceptionally handsome. So has he unlocked the left side? Probably too soon to say, but I definitely think he's got the potential to improve us on that flank. And I've really, really liked what I've seen of him in these first two games. I think as well as Julian Timber has done in that position, I think Calafiori looks another level of comfortable above Timber on that side.
Would you not also then say that Timber on the right is, I know it's a small sample size, but I think Timber on the right is way more effective than Timber as left back. Like, he does the job, but when you look at what he can contribute going forward yesterday, playing him on the right side makes a lot more sense to me than playing him on the left. Like, he can, he can do what you need him to do if you don't have anybody else, or if you want to do a specific job for a particular game against certain opposition. I get it, but I think what we're seeing from Timber now that he is, approaching match fit, playing him on the right is a really interesting option and makes for a really interesting dynamic, because Ben White obviously has been a brilliant player for us and is still a brilliant player for us, and somebody Mikel Arteta loves and admires in a big, big way. But it gives us another option there that, without Ben White, normally we've spent basically 2 seasons, James, without anybody to deputise properly for Ben White. Mm-hmm. Like the whole of last season, because Timber wasn't available, and the previous season when I think the other option was Cedric, which, is too much of a step down. So it's interesting now that we have the ability to pick and choose or chop and change or distribute minutes in a way which maximizes what both of these players can give us.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how that's going to play out, because I know that we've had to rely on Ben White enormously over the last 2 years, and probably to an extent that's not right. But I also have the strong sense that he is someone who wants to play in every game. Yeah, I mean, most footballers do, but I think he kind of, he sees himself as a guy who I play every single game, and that's part of his identity. So I am just curious to see how Arteta's going to manage the fullback situation and how and when he'll rotate it and how he'll change it up game by game according to the opponent. I mean, this will be an interesting week for it, perhaps, because, we've got PSG and then Southampton at the weekend. So maybe we'll see some changes across those two games.
Yeah, maybe so. But it is good, to have those options available and to have those different dynamics in those fullback positions. When Arteta talked last season about wanting more variety in terms of how we play, I think there were elements of Timber's absence and probably Partey's absence for most of the season, which stripped him of that. But having Timber back now and Calafiori as, I think, a really, really solid, impressive option for left back for most of this season, will allow us to produce that kind of variety in games, which I think is something for the opposition to come to terms with. Like, I think if you've got Zinchenko in there and Zinchenko does what Zinchenko does, everybody kind of understands that, and coaches and analysts will have worked that out, whereas I don't think it's as easy to do that with Calafiori on one side and Timber on the other.
And do you think there's some promising signs between Calafiori and Martinelli on that side?
I think so. Yeah, did I have a question about that? I think I saw a question.
You mentioned it in the when you asked me.
Oh, did I? Okay. No, has it Calafiori unlocked the left-hand side? Actually, I had a different question about that. Again, it's early days, small sample size, but I think the question was from AMS 266. Have we been missing a trick not playing Trossard and Martinelli together? They seem to have that a hint of that special relationship that's often spoken about, which I think is interesting because for a while it's been kind of either or. Certainly when Odegaard is there and if Havertz is playing up front, it does feel like either or for Martinelli or Trossard for the left-hand side. But, there are other relationships developing, I guess.
I think so. And I think Martinelli tends to play better with Trossard next to him than he does with, say, Havertz. They just seem to have a more intuitive understanding. I hope this is a big game for Gabriel Martinelli. I hope it's, he obviously played against City and I think did really well, but playing in a very different way, with a very different task. I think for him to get a goal assist in this game after so long is a big step forward for him. And I'm hoping that he can really kick on from here.
Yeah, me too. He needed a moment to kickstart things from an end product point of view. I don't think there was anything missing at all from his performances this season in terms of work rate, endeavour, what he tried to do. It didn't come off in the attacking third. I think I've spoken about this quite a bit over the last couple of weeks after the Derby and the City game. I think defensively, the work he puts into this team is unbelievable. I think he deserves a huge amount of credit for that. But when you're starting as a nominal left-sided forward, people are going to judge you on what you deliver in terms of goals and assists. And I think it's very important that he does that because he has the ability, he has the talent. And the longer it went on without him scoring or making an assist, the more it was going to be an issue. So hopefully there's a sort of freedom or liberation now that comes with making those contributions yesterday.
We had this question, which I enjoyed about Manchester City. Simon King said, why did City play for a draw away from home? Which I enjoyed. We did have another one here from Frank Saka. It said, this one's a bit daft and I prefer not to think or talk about Pep. But did anyone else think it felt like an admission of guilt when he reacted to Arteta's comments about knowing all about the club and making it about the 115 charges?
Yeah, I thought his response was really strange.
Yeah.
Really odd.
Because I think it was quite clear in what Arteta originally said that that's not what he was implying.
100%. I think what Arteta was saying was, it was a question about, the question was about what the City players had said about the way Arsenal approached that game. And specifically, the questioner mentioned John Stones, Manuel Akanji and Bernardo Silva, who all had different things to say, slightly critical. I think Stones was maybe the most magnanimous of them, but he sort of said, look, this is what they do. It's up to us to deal with it. Silva, of course, we know is a bitter little man. And Akanji, said they've mastered the dark arts, but we're still going to win the league. So it was all a bit pointed from them. But I think what Arteta's point was when he answered that question, like, I've been there for 4 years, I have all the information, is I know how they operate. I know what they do. I know that this is part of the game, and part of the game you need to be good at if you want to go the distance and win titles. There was nothing more to it than that. It wasn't like, oh, I've got a dossier. I'm like fucking WikiLeaks or Football Leaks of Man City. So I found it really weird that Guardiola went the way he did. And started bringing up, oh, does he mean the 115 charges? He's got to be a bit more clear about that. I think when you look at everything, I think you could go back through every interview Mikel Arteta has ever done since he took over at Arsenal that has referenced Manchester City, and he will never have spoken a bad word about them. Not a bad word about the club, the owners, Pep Guardiola, the charges, like nothing. He has never even hinted at any of that, right?
Yeah.
And that might be something that frustrates you as an Arsenal fan because, we're all dealing with what we think City are and have become and the way they've become it. But he has never once done anything that could provoke that kind of response from Pep Guardiola. I do think he was kind of led down the garden path a little bit by the journalist in question, who framed what Arteta said in a way that it wasn't. He misrepresented, I think, Arteta's comments to Guardiola, but I still found it like Pep should know better. And he fell for that hook, line and sinker, which might tell you something about the way he's thinking about Arsenal and thinking about Arteta's threat to his Premier League dominance.
Yeah, it's been a very, I hesitate to say interesting week. It really depends how you interpret it. There's been a lot of kind of politicking and twisting of words and all sorts of things going on. I think broadly I do find it quite entertaining. I think that these are the things that we remember about title races in the past, and I quite like that bit of needle and animosity is entering the relationship. It's interesting because Arteta and Guardiola, City and Arsenal are two clubs that are in sort of direct conflict in so many ways. You've got it on the pitch in, Haaland against Saliba and Gabriel, or all the Arsenal players against Rodri. You've got it in the boardroom because of the stuff going on with the 115 charges and the kind of fundamental ideological, philosophical differences between the two clubs. But the relationship between Arteta and Guardiola has been this kind of last bastion, right? Like, it's kind of very respectful. And even yesterday, Arteta was asked to clarify his comments again, as Guardiola had called upon him to do, and couldn't have been more effusive in his praise of Guardiola. But I just think in these kind of public protestations of their mutual admiration and respect, I can't help but wonder if behind that, the title fight is beginning to take its toll slightly on some of those relationships.
Yeah, maybe. And if it's Pep that's, feeling that pressure a bit more than Arteta, because I think Arteta's quite sanguine about it. He says, this is competitive sport. I want to win. He wants to win. This is how we operate. But, personal and professional are different things. So no, I did find it fascinating. And, there's all that story, isn't there, this week about, one of the Arsenal executives not shaking hands at Manchester City. But, I don't want to I don't want to get that one wrong.
Mysteriously getting footage of it and things like that. Yeah.
I'd hate to get that one wrong, though, James. You know how often we're wrong about things.
Yes, that's true. That is true. I mean, yeah, it's all kind of nonsense.
Yeah,
but it is also
part of the theatre, the drama of it.
Absolutely,
yeah, the soap opera. Yeah. I think.
But one thing we haven't really spoken about is, of course, City did drop points yesterday.
Yeah, that's good. I was watching a little bit of that yesterday, and obviously good to see. And I think obviously that made our result all the more important. I think had we dropped points on the same day that City had dropped points, it would have compounded our misery as it was. You know, I think there's no way we could have escaped with 2-2 and said that was anything other than dropped points. But it would have been compounded had we done it on the same day that City had dropped points away to Newcastle as well. So
definitely. And my feeling about City at Newcastle is that is precisely the kind of game where if you want to beat City to the title, you probably need them to drop some points. You know what I mean? Like, it's a hard away game in the Premier League, one of the hardest ones. And winning there would just, which I know they've done it many times in the past, but I think it just would have demonstrated that slight sort of feeling of invincibility. Whereas it just shows a little chink in the armour, 2 points dropped, and gives everyone else in the Premier League, I think crucially gives everyone else in the Premier League a bit of hope of like, okay, we can get something against these guys. Yeah,
there's a sort of air of fallibility maybe about City that wasn't there in previous seasons. And maybe it is tied to the absence of Rodri, because he's such an important player for them. And as much as we dislike him, I think you have to acknowledge that he is and has been an extraordinarily consistent performer for Manchester City. Just high level, game after game after game. The consistency, the availability, I think has been part of the bedrock of Man City over the last couple of years. And without him, and with a couple of players getting a little bit older, maybe there's some chinks in the armour there that other teams won't feel quite as intimidated by them, or feel like it's a sure thing whenever they're going to play City that they're going to drop points. So that can only be good for us.
And he's been consistently a twat as well, Rodri, as well.
Well, that's fair enough. I can't argue with that. What about this one from Solo, who says, regardless of the reason, we've clearly started using our promising young players more. Do you think any of the recent academy departures are regretting leaving?
No, because I don't think they would have got these chances, to be honest with you. I mean, actually, that's quite a fun thing to do, is sort of see what they're up to. So, like Rule Walters, for example, who went to Luton. What's he doing? Is he playing? Yeah, five starts in the league, 1 substitute appearances.
Where are Luton in the table?
No idea. Let's find out.
Are they in the Championship or League One?
They're in the Championship. They didn't get relegated 2 divisions in 1 year. That would have been very mean. They're 19th, Andrew.
19th. That's not great, is it?
They've won 2 of their first 7 games.
That's not great.
And who was the other fella, the winger?
Kosher Dubry. Yeah.
Let's see what he's up to. So he went to Brighton, of course.
He went out on loan then. They loaned him to someone.
You're right. Blackburn? Yes, Blackburn.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find some stats for him. 3 championship appearances so far.
Right.
Listen, that's great. And I think that's a good playing experience for both those players. I think it's a great level for them, decent clubs, and hopefully they can kick on. I don't think if they were here, they would be getting off the bench in the North London derby or the Etihad.
Completely agree.
Which is what Ethan Ranieri and then Miles Lewis-Skelly did in successive massive away games. Would they have been involved in the Carabao game? Very possibly. But I'm not sure that would have changed something for them. And the fact that at 19 years of age or whatever they are, Arteta didn't really trust them, but is able to trust some of these guys at 17, 18 years of age.
Or 16.
Or 16, I think tells a bit of a story. And maybe there's been a slight shift in Arteta as well. I don't think Coach Dewberry or Will Walters will regret their decision. I think they did the right thing for them. But I do wonder if maybe Arteta has had a conversation with the club, or it's been part of the club's thinking and strategy of, we need to start seeing progress from the academy. Mm-hmm. And, maybe that plays into some of the decisions that were made around the Carabao selection and things like that. But I don't think that could explain bringing on, Miles Lewis-Skelly at 2-1 at the Etihad to help see it out.
No, I agree with you. And look, injuries have played a part, but on the bench yesterday, Josh Nichols, Maldini Kakuri, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri, with a combined, or with an average age of 17 between them, so there is more I think there is more of a willingness. The other player I had a quick look at, by the way, when we talked about some of the youth players, was Charlie Patino, who left to go to Deportivo La Coruña. He has played 7 minutes so far for Deportivo. Came on as a sub in their 5-2 win over Albacete. Beyond that, he's just been on the bench, but I think there is obviously a bit of adaptation for him to do in a new country and a new league as well, Spanish second division. So again, I don't think he would be, had he been around, and even if we had the injury to Odegaard, the injury to Marino, the suspension for Rice, I don't think Charlie Patino would have been the guy. So
no, I did see over the weekend news out of Manchester United that Chido Obi-Martin's transfer there is expected to be ratified. Technically not from Arsenal, because his deal with Arsenal had expired. But obviously that'll be an interesting one to see how he fares. I do just get the sense that Arteta, A, is in a slightly different place as a manager at this point in time, and B, has a different degree of faith in this particular crop of youngsters.
Yeah.
What about this one? Calafiori, we've kind of done. JP24, goodly morning, guys. With that cameo from Ethan, do we expect him to start against Southampton? I think he's got a real chance.
I think he might. Depends on what happens in midweek, of course. But I think he might.
There's also talk of Mikel Merino not being too far away, isn't there?
That's true. I do wonder about whether he will get a start, though. He might be somebody who comes off the bench if he is available. But that's good news. And Tomiyasu apparently not too far away as well. So the more the merrier, if you ask me. I would have no problem with Ethan Nwaneri starting against Southampton. None at all. What I would say, though, is there is a case to be made that giving him minutes via substitute appearances, is probably really beneficial for him in terms of not asking too much for him from him physically. But also, when you looked at the bench yesterday and you thought, right, who have we got on there if we need to change something in midfield? And he seemed like the obvious guy to me. Like I said, I think you could have brought him on 15, 20 minutes earlier for Thomas Partey in this game, and he would have had an impact, a creative attacking impact. So if you can't break down the Leicester low block or the Southampton low block or whoever it is, and you look at your central midfield options on the bench and it's Thomas Partey and Jorginho because you've started Ethan Nwaneri, I'm not sure either of those two are the guys that I would bank on to make the difference in the attacking third, whereas I think you can really change the dynamic with Nwaneri off the bench. So while I wouldn't be at all against it, and while I wouldn't be that surprised if it happened, I can sort of see why Arteta might just keep him as like an ace in the pack, if you like.
Yeah, that's a very sensible point. And I think Arteta may come down on that side of it. But I think he's got to be very close to getting that start. Just because as well, certain players will have played against Leicester, against PSG. At that point in time, there'll be a need for a certain degree of rotation. And I think he's done kind of everything he can do, really, to earn that place. And I think in Odegaard's absence, he just brings another dynamic to our team that I think, helps us.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing that it's only September. I know injuries have kind of created some of this opportunity, but we're already talking about him potentially starting Premier League games, which I think is way ahead of schedule, as Arteta suggested the other day.
But I mean, does that not also show you what an impact he has made with the opportunities that he has had? Like, he's had the opportunities because of injury, but we talk about players taking their chance with both hands. I think he's absolutely done that.
He really, really has. What about this question, actually? I know I just asked you one, but this is from Tola on Discord. Goodly morning, gents, and condolences, Andrew.
Thank you.
Needing a goal with around 30 minutes to play, and Jesus only gets on after the game was basically won with a 94th minute goal. How much of an indicator of Arteta's current view of Jesus, and particularly his goal threat, do you think the timing of that substitution is? For our number 9 to come on after a loanee in Sterling and a teenager in Ranieri seems to suggest Arteta has lost some of his faith in Jesus. Pun certainly intended.
I think that is true. I think that has to be true. I was thinking about Jesus as the game was going on, and I was thinking about who does he come on for? And I looked at Havertz and the game Havertz was having. I looked at Trossard and the contribution he was making. I think he was really good yesterday. Havertz was really good. Saka was really good. Martinelli was really good with a goal and an assist, but he obviously made way to put Sterling on. I think maybe there's an element of Sterling being the kind of new option that gave him the nod ahead of Jesus. But then I was thinking, we desperately needed a goal, and our number 9, as the question said, was sitting on the bench for the entire time. And I think he could potentially have done what Arsene Wenger did in the past and take a fullback off and put another forward on and really throw everything, the kitchen sink at the Leicester defence to try and get the goal. The Nwaneri for Partey sub, I think, is distinct from the Jesus one, because as I just said, I think it gives you a different dynamic in midfield. I suppose he could have put Jesus on for Partey and sort of shifted Trossard around or Havertz around a little bit, but I understood that one. But you can sort of understand it when Jesus goes through in that moment late on after we got it to 3-2. What did I say to you? Like, if he did the simple thing, he'd be about 25% better player. Mm-hmm. The simple thing was just play that ball across when you had Sterling and when you had Havertz waiting for what would essentially have been a tap-in. But he delayed, and he didn't make the right decision. Ultimately, it led to a goal, which is good, but I think he made the wrong decision in that moment, and I think that is part of why he only came on when he did, because he's not making the right decisions at the right time.
Yeah. And maybe that's slightly born out of that thing of, I need to make the impact myself.
Yeah.
I need to make an impression. I have to say, it kind of passed me by during the game, but when it's laid out like that and you see that he didn't get on, it's quite striking. He's not really been the same player, I think, arguably ever since we lost him during that World Cup. That's quite a broad statement, that. Obviously, there have been great moments along the way. But in terms of what he consistently delivered in that first few months at Arsenal, we've not had him at that level since. And I wish we did, because he was fantastic.
Same.
And Sterling getting the nod. I mean, Sterling, he didn't have a great deal of impact in the game, but I can understand it, because what can he do? He's a poacher, isn't he? He's a guy who finds space in the box, who gets on the end of things. And that's the one thing you can't really rely on Jesus to do.
Yeah, well, look, he'll have chances. There's lots of football to play. But I think, who am I to advise any professional footballer? I just think if he took the easiest option a bit more often, he'd have more impact. That's the only thing I can say.
I think that's fair.
All right, let's go out on this one. Crimson 505 says, you've just been awarded a hype man who will celebrate your everyday accomplishments in life, such as making a delicious meal, spelling a difficult word on the first try, etc., without autocorrect or Grammarly or anything like that. Your choices are Saliba or Big Gabby. Who do you choose?
Great question. I think I'd choose Big Gabby. I just like the idea of being accompanied by that banshee wail at all times. It's a terrifying sound, but one that I think that would appropriately kind of announce my entrance to any room.
Yeah. It sounds like a fox riding another fox riding another fox.
Disgusting, but yeah, accurate.
But accurate. I'd have to go for Saliba. I just think, Saliba with his arm around your shoulders, sort of pointing at, look at this guy. Look at what he did. Yeah. He changed the wheel on his car after it got a flat tire. Look at him. I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
I'd love if I knew how to do that,
yeah.
to be honest.
if I
looking at me like, come on, mate.
What are you doing? Just get the fucking, what do they call them? The wheel nuts, lug nuts, or whatever they're called. I don't know. See, that tells you what about my mechanical skills. Yeah.
Well, listen, Andrew, thank you for doing the pod in light of your, even despite your difficult few days. I'm sure everyone will appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's always easier to do it when I have you by my side. We've been through some ups and downs over the years, and I'm always delighted and happy to do this. It is a little bit of a distraction as well, so I appreciate that as well.
If you're looking for distractions, I don't know if this will appeal to you.
Okay.
But I personally am quite looking forward to this afternoon's Premier League offering at 4:30 p.m. So it's Manchester United versus Tottenham.
Right.
And I love games where both teams that I dislike absolutely have the capacity to completely implode. I feel like almost any result here could be a victory.
Apart from, obviously, a Tottenham victory. That wouldn't be any kind of victory, but I understand where you're coming from.
You know what I mean? I feel like the potential for chaos is spot on. Well, I might sit down to enjoy some of that.
Sit down to enjoy that. I think what I will do today is I might wander into the city centre, into town, with my wife, and maybe have a couple of drinks and a bite of food, and I'll catch up on match of the day. I can't inflict Tottenham upon myself on a day like today.
That's true. Self-care above all.
Exactly. Things. A different kind of distraction. Of course, we do have midweek football. There's a game against PSG on It's Tuesday, isn't it?
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday. So yeah, we will preview that game for you over on Patreon at some point tomorrow, I think. We'll try and get that to you when we can. Interesting game to consider, and interesting team decisions for Mikel Arteta to make. So that's another little distraction that we can have. I think there will be an Arsenal women Arsecast tomorrow because the women are in action this afternoon. Are they also playing Leicester? I think they are.
Yes, they are, but away.
Isn't that a bit mad, though? Like, Arsenal women played Man City last weekend, and we played Man City this weekend, and then we played Leicester this weekend, and the women are playing Leicester.
What's going on?
What's happening? The universe is a strange and wonderful thing. Okay, look, we'll leave it there. Thank you again to everybody for being here, for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. And again, thanks so much for all the messages of sympathy. They're greatly appreciated by everybody in this household, including Lana. Give your own dog some love today. Thanks again, and we will catch you on the next one.
And thank you, Archer, for that winning goal. Bye-bye.